So how will Ron DeSantis respond to calls that he fire a school board member who participated in menage a trois and happens to be married to the chair of the state Republican Party? This week, all four of Bridget Ziegler's fellow Sarasota school board members called for the resignation of Ziegler, who is, by the way, co-founder of the conservative group Moms for Liberty. The reason relates to circumstances surrounding an investigation of her husband, Florida GOP Chair Christian Ziegler, who's being accused of rape by another woman. He has not been charged, and Bridget has not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing. Here's the backstory. According to an affidavit obtained by CNN, a woman told police that on October 2nd, there was a planned sexual encounter between her and both Christian and Bridget Ziegler. Bridget canceled, leading the other woman to also cancel, but Christian still showed up at the woman's home. The woman says that she told Christian she was, quote, not in a place to consent because she'd been drinking tequila all day. But she says he nevertheless had sex with her, and she later called her sister and said that she'd been raped. Christian Ziegler says the encounter was consensual and has refused requests to step down, including from Governor DeSantis. His lawyer says that he will be exonerated. So why has this one-time private life choice touched a particular public nerve? In Bridget's interview with detectives, she admitted that the couple had a previous three-way sexual encounter with the woman over a year ago, and that it only happened one time. And her group, Moms for Liberty, has led efforts in the state and beyond to remove books from classrooms they deem inappropriate for kids, including those with LGBTQ themes. Bridget also helped author Florida's Parents' Bill of Rights, which Governor DeSantis signed in 2022, and DeSantis appointed her to the board that manages Disney's special tax district. In the past, Bridget has said this.
Know who their candidates are for school board, know where they stand, and hold them accountable.
At this week's Sarasota school board meeting, outside of which one protester held up a sign reading, "Don't say three-way," Bridget rejected calls to resign.
As people may know, I serve on another public board, and this issue did not come up, and we were able to forge ahead with the business of the board.
She can't be recalled, and the board doesn't have the power to remove her. Only Governor DeSantis can do that, and it's unclear whether he will take action against his longtime ally. I should mention we reached out to Bridget Ziegler to appear on the program and did not hear back. Joining me now, however, is Tom Edwards. He's the only Democratic member of the Sarasota School Board. He sent a letter to the governor warning Bridget Ziegler's continued presence on the board is going to be a profound distraction from their work. Okay, on what basis do you think that Governor DeSantis, Tom, should remove Mrs. Ziegler?
Well, quite frankly, the details of the investigation are reason enough to justify the distraction that he himself feels his party chair brings to the state of Florida. I am focused solely on student achievement and academic outcomes, and this distraction that Mrs. Ziegler and the details of that investigation bring are exactly the same distraction, even though she's not being accused of anything illegal. Nonetheless, the hypocrisy joined into the details of the investigation just clearly means that the school board is going to have great difficulty trying to do the work for the students.
Okay, not to be too prurient, but is it necessarily hypocrisy?
Listen, I'm not in the business of judging what people do in the privacy of their homes. I am in the business of overseeing academic achievement and student outcomes, as I mentioned. Everything that Mrs. Ziegler will say moving forward will fall under the scrutiny of, can it be trusted? Is it hypocritical, or is it political? And then the next thing is that her colleagues on the board who voted side by side with her in just about every instance really brings into question the trust of the entire board. And so my fear is that it will be a constant distraction from what we're there to accomplish.
There's a perception that I want to discuss with you. I talked about this on my radio program, and I was surprised by the number of callers who said, well, those books ought to be banned. And the perception is that there are books widespread, accessible to students all across America, depicting, among other things, oral sex. Are there books that we need to be worried about our kids having access to at a young age? Is that what she's banned?
Okay, so let's back up a second. I think everybody's in agreement that in the initial Don't Say Gay bill, the law was drafted to say we didn't want to discuss sexual orientation or gender in K through 3. I don't think anyone has an argument about that, but frankly, that was never, ever happening. And we didn't need a law to prevent that from happening, but it created the chaos and the dust up around the LGBTQ plus community. And furthermore, here's what I really want to say is the hypocrisy of what Mrs. Ziegler has done is the low-hanging fruit. What really has happened is that students' self-esteem and their mental health has been seriously wounded and damaged because while they're in their formative years, they've heard, don't say gay. And so while you're discovering your identity in the world, you're attacked by that very identity. And by the way, that happened to Black children. Whitewashing Black history, stop woke, slavery, the benefits of slavery. And if you're Black and gay, you have it to the third power.
Tom, I want to make sure I ask you this. I watched a local Florida report. I think it was your local Fox affiliate. And it was you being heckled. And I think that's a kind word in a public setting at a school board meeting. And I'm going to say it. Someone shouted out that you were a groomer. Correct me if I'm wrong in terms of the allegation. And when I watched it, I said to myself, who the hell is going to serve on a local school board other than some fringe type? Because the decent people that I can think of are going to say, I don't need it. You know, I'll go give to my community in some other respect. So my point is larger than Sarasota. I'm worried that decent people are bypassing community involvement.
Well, that's a very valid question. And that's what I'm really trying to explain to you about the mental health and the I was that adolescent, that young person in the 70s trying to figure out their identity. And it was a very different world at that time. And my self-esteem was constantly challenged. Now look at what's happened to those communities, those marginalized communities across the United States. And your point is so valid. It didn't just happen in Sarasota. It didn't just happen in the state of Florida. Governor DeSantis took those policies on the road deliberately and deliberately harmed children with Mrs. Ziegler only for their own personal political gain. And many of it, as you know, is being rejected as Mr. DeSantis is on that political trail. People are very angry, and you can look at the public comments that happened just recently in our school board, and grandparents and parents and students came out to chastise Mrs. Ziegler for that very damage and that very real pain that was done.
It's going to be very interesting to see what, if anything, Governor DeSantis does about her position on the Sarasota School Board. Tom Edwards, happy holidays. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for allowing me the ability to showcase what's gone wrong.
Thank you, sir. Checking in now on social media reaction that has come in during the course of the program. Catherine, what do we have from the world of X? By the way, I never say it. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on X, as it's now known. Bridget Ziegler is a hypocrite. But what you do behind closed doors is your business. Is it bad that she doesn't want kids to know about threesomes? Interesting, Kellyanne. I don't have time. This is not the forum. Is she necessarily a hypocrite? I mean, if you really think it through or not. I'm not that I'm comfortable with a person who is as politically motivated as she has become in opposition to LGBTQ issues. Then I don't think she's fit to serve in that capacity. My 2 cents. But is there a question of hypocrisy? I think is more complicated, actually. And that's all I'm saying.